The group began life as Gary and the Playboys. Gary Lewis started the band with 4 friends of his when he was 18. Joking at the lateness of his bandmates to practice, Lewis referred to them as Playboys and the name stuck. They auditioned for a job at Disneyland without telling Disneyland employees about Lewis's celebrity father. They were hired on the spot. Audiences at Disneyland quickly accepted them, and the Playboys were soon playing to a full house every night. The orchestra bandleader Les Brown, who had known Jerry Lewis for years, had told record producer Snuff Garrett that the younger Lewis was playing at Disneyland. After listening to the band, Garrett thought using Gary's famous name might sell more records and convinced them to add Lewis into their name. Garrett brought them to a recording studio with the song This Diamond Ring in a session financed by Jerry Lewis's wife, Patty. It has been reported that the Playboys were not allowed to play their own instruments in the studio, but Lewis has since denied this. Garrett wanted to maximize the chances for a hit, so he insisted on using experienced session musicians for the overdubs, which include guitar and keyboard solos, additional bass and drum overdubs, and timpani. These musicians included Mike Deasy and Tommy Allsup on guitars, Leon Russell on keyboards, Joe Osborne on bass, and Hal Blaine on drums, members of the larger group known as the Wrecking Crew. Session singer Ron Hicklin did the basic vocal track. Garrett then added Lewis's voice twice, added some of the Playboys, and more of Hicklin. Garrett got airplay in New York City for This Diamond Ring by making a deal with WINS disc jockey Murray the K. Kaufman, who ran a series of all-star concerts at theaters around the New York area. Garrett promised that if Kaufman played Lewis's record, the Playboys would do his shows. Garrett then had Jerry Lewis use his contacts to get his son onto the Ed Sullivan Show. However, Sullivan had a general policy that all acts appearing on his show were to perform live. Since so many studio tricks had been used on the record, the Playboys could not recreate its sound. In compromise, Lewis sang along with pre-recorded tracks as the Playboys pretended to play their instruments. The January 1965 broadcast made Gary Lewis and the Playboys instant stars. This Diamond Ring went to number 1 and it sold over 1 million copies by April of 1965 and became a gold disc. However, by the end of 1965, only West and Lewis remained in the band. Other later members include Tommy Triplehorn, father of actress Jean Triplehorn, Carl Rattle, who died in 1980, Jimmy Karsten, Randy Ruff Pete Vrains, Bob Simpson, Adolf Zugner, Les John, Wayne Bruno, and Dave Gonzalez. The group was one of only 2 acts during the 1960s whose first 7 releases on the Billboard Hot 100 reached the top 10. And the other band, surprisingly, was not the Beatles, the Beach Boys, or the Rolling Stones. It was the Loving Spoonful that was the other band after, but Gary Lewis and the Playboys were first. So these are the following songs that were in the top 10, their first 7. This Diamond Ring at number 1, Count Me In at number 2, and at that time it was the only non-British Commonwealth record in the top 10 that week. Save Your Heart For Me, which went to number 2. Everybody Loves a Clown at number 4. She's Just My Style at number 3. Sure Gonna Miss Her at number 9, and Green Grass went to number 8. Unfortunately, as soon as they started having some momentum and they had the 7 straight top 10 hits, Lewis was drafted into the U.S. Army in January of 1967. They ended up releasing material while he was in the U.S. Army with previously recorded songs, but the success was not as good as it was from 1965 to 1967. On his 1968 discharge, Lewis immediately returned to recording, reaching the top 40 one last time with a top 20 remake of Brian Hyland's Sealed with a Kiss, but he was unable to regain his group's earlier momentum. Lewis continued touring, eventually marketing the band as a nostalgia act. He also appeared and performed on many of his father's Labor Day telethons. In all, Lewis had 8 gold singles, 12 top 40 hit singles, but only 15 Hot 100 entries, and 4 gold albums. In addition to The Ed Sullivan Show, he appeared on American Bandstand, Shindig, Hula Baloo, The Sally Jesse Raphael Show, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, The Mike Douglas Show, Nashville Now, and Wolfman Jack. Despite the group's US success, they made virtually no impact at all in the UK. Their only UK singles chart appearance occurred in 1975 when a reissue of 1966 My Heart's Symphony peaked at number 36. Nevertheless, at a time when British groups were dominating the American music scene, Gary Lewis and the Playboys were one of the few successful 1960s homegrown groups. So to answer the question about what happened to Gary Lewis, here you go, here's the answer. In 1971, Lewis took a break from performing, operating a music shop in the San Fernando Valley and giving drumming lessons. A brief attempt at starting a new band called Medicine with Billy Cowsill of the Cowsills in 1974 did not go anywhere. Lewis began touring again in the 1980s with various incarnations of the Playboys, generally featuring no other original members. On the nationally syndicated program Inside Edition, Gary met his half-sister Suzanne Kleinman, who had learned from DNA testing results that they are related siblings, the children of comedy star Jerry Lewis. Lewis and his family reside in Rush, New York. In the summer of 2013, Lewis, along with a group of 60s musicians including Gary Puckett of Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, Chuck Negron, formerly of Three Dog Night, Mark Lindsay, who is the former lead singer of Paul Revere and the Raiders, and the Turtles featuring Flo and Eddie, toured 47 cities in Paradise Artist's Happy Together tour. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Gary Lewis and the Playboys were still touring the world on their own and occasionally with other popular acts in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. The group performed at cruise ships, casinos, festivals, fairs, and corporate events. We'll see if Gary Lewis ever goes back to touring once things start to cool down, but that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching this video, and if you haven't already, like and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content like this. And let me know, who do you want me to do a video on? Who do you want to know? What happened to so-and-so? What is there anyone you want to know about what happened to them after they became popular? Just let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in my next video.